Josh Hoover's emergence into the portal makes this a really interesting quarterback group, but will he be number one? I don't think he will, and I'm going to explain why on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 place to get your podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, if you want to be right in the middle of the action all season long, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets. We're going to be talking about all the fun stuff that's going to happen in the Oklahoma versus Alabama game tonight. I have some interesting thoughts on it, including some thoughts about injuries with trends. There's some unfortunate injury news to get to a little bit later on in the show. We're going to be talking about the best quarterback. I'm going to rank them in terms of who's entered the portal so far as I do this show at noon Eastern on a Friday. By the time this show's over, Lord only knows, there could be another quarterback in the portal. But to start off, I want to talk about why Josh Hoover is such an important factor in the portal, because while he has a lot of talent, there are some risks with him. So let's dive into that. Josh Hoover is not just a good player. He's really good, but he does have flaws. Most importantly, over the last, 7 games or so, if you look at what's going on with him, you can look at the stats and say, this may not be as good as we thought. But here are the overall numbers. So far this season, looking at Hoover, 272, 413, 65.9%, 3,472 yards, 29 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. PFF has a stat that is really, really important to me. If you're going to be an explosive offense, passing plays that go down the field are very important, not just hitting screens or throwing a short under route and the guy makes a bunch of guys miss. I'm talking about the ball travels 20 or more yards in the air before anyone makes contact. PFF tracks this. So far this year, 22 of 54, 40.7%, 743 yards, 10 TDs, 4 interceptions. I shouldn't be saying so far this year. He's obviously in the portal. He's not going to play in the bowl game. He's going to transfer somewhere. Just mindset. But anyway, the bottom line, he can get the ball down the field, and they've got good receivers at TCU. They've got pretty good offensive linemen at TCU. But I want you to think about the following question, and I want to come back to this a little later. What would he do with his accuracy if he had just a little bit better talent across the board on his offense? How would he be? There's a reason Tennessee went after him. Like, he throws the deep ball well. For those that don't know, Hoover was one of the very first choices for Josh Heupel in that crew when the whole Nico Iamaleava situation unfolded last spring. He got offered a lot of money to go head up to Knoxville to play for Rocky Top. That's something to think about. So again, just for an example, better offensive line for Hoover, would he be throwing for 4,000 yards again this year? Very possible. And to that end, I want to share another stat that's very, very important. I don't think many people necessarily realize just how impactful pass rush is. Statistically, some of this stuff can get really, really dicey. And I don't know what the situation is going to be for a lot of guys around the country in terms of throwing the football down the field, making it happen. But let me pull up this stat here. We've got PFF and some other stats that are important, but I've got, here we go. That's Beck. Excuse me. And I also have a stat for Mr. Hoover. His last 4 games, when I look at TCU, I thought I had it pulled up already. I'll pull it up now. And I know this is bad radio, but for Beck, or for Hoover this year, when you look at his last 4 games passing the football, you go down and you look at the stats. The 3 interceptions against Houston are concerning, and so are the stats overall in the last 4. Let me pull these up here. This is not where you want to be. Why did it happen? Pressure is part of it. They needed to win as part of it. I get it. But that's not a good enough stat, in my opinion, looking at those last 4 games. So what are they? 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions, and then 0. Like, it's weird because he tore apart a rather good Cincinnati team. Destroyed them. 4 TDs, no picks, 19-22. That's a really, really good way to go, and more power to him for it. But why did he have all the interceptions in the other games? This is why I personally don't have him number one. I still think he'll command a ton of money, and with better players around him, I think that Hoover will be that guy. But again, against Iowa State and BYU in particular, he had 1 TD, 4 interceptions, and he only went 44 of 73 in those games. Against BYU, he played really bad, 10-23. They played a lot of defense that kind of made, I don't want to say made TCU run the ball, but all but made him run it, tried to keep everything in front, and they did a good job. And he threw 2 picks. BYU was more physical, good for them, but that was surprising. And then the Houston game was kind of interesting. Had a high percentage, 2 touchdowns, but he had 3 picks, 72.7% completion, but 3 interceptions. That leaves me a little bit puzzled. So with that being stated, I don't know how many people have Hoover now as their number one quarterback in the portal, but I'll go through the list here in a second of the guys that I think should be in consideration. But I will say this much. He has the potential in the very, very right scheme to be top of the board, like number one. But if he's not in the absolute best scheme, what you're seeing in those last 4 games can happen. Nothing against the Big 12, but the defenses there aren't going to be what Tennessee faces. Remember, they play Georgia and Alabama every year, if that's where he goes. If he goes to another SEC team, what if he goes to LSU? That'd be really interesting. Lane Kiffin's another guy, but they play Bama. They play Ole Miss. They play Texas A&M. They've got Auburn next year. Team's got really good defensive backs. How would he do? Pass pressure is part of it in that league, no matter how good your O-line is. Look at A&M against LSU this year. I mean, they destroyed LSU because they couldn't pass protect for the quarterback. Like LSU just couldn't handle it. That's a problem. It wasn't like LSU doesn't have a quarterback. So this is how you have to look at it from a down the road perspective. I don't think Hoover is the number one guy yet, but he could be if he's given the right tools. And he's really accurate, and I like how he pushes the ball down the field. Again, he's thrown it a lot down the field for his time. And maybe he would be that guy to take a team deep run. Maybe he could do that with Kiffin in year one. It's like LSU's got a ton of talent. That's possible. And I'm sure Florida would take a look at it. But just be clear, I'm sure there's some Gator fans that are going to watch this. He doesn't run much. Buster Faulkner likes to run the quarterback, although he doesn't have to. That would be something Hoover might have to adjust to if he did. So when we come back, we're going to go over my rankings. And I've got him pretty high, but he's not number one. That is next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. The holidays are always showing up faster than we expect, and if you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need and to get them fast. Wayfair is truly the one-stop shop for everything home, decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. Their selection is huge: bedding, decor, kitchen gear, kids' room updates. I was able to find what I needed. I needed a desk for a computer, got it to my place in 3 days from door to door. It was simple with Wayfair. Get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for your loved ones, and decor, and celebrate the holidays with way, way less money out of your pocket. Wayfair.com. Shop all things home. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style and every home. We are also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now with the NFL, Sundays, are moving fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to that game in real time. With FanDuel, once you place your bets, all the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. It can happen in a blink of an eye. So that's why live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a running back gets hot, a defense tightens up, quarterback makes a big play, or maybe there's a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment whenever it happens. I'm a Colts fan, and I'm kind of curious what's going to happen there. New quarterback, sort of. He's a quarterback that's been there before. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now he's back. over under, I think it's 154 yards passing. That's a pretty interesting stat for a player prop. And you can do that with any game in the NFL. Maybe it's Mahomes, maybe it's somebody else. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action with season, FanDuel.com has you taken care of. Place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. And if you want to really take your experience to the next level, try out the Everydayer Club. Get rid of the ads, get Discord, all those things that you want to do to be more involved, following your teams, following the transfer portal, following recruiting. We have the description link down below. Just check it out. Have fun with it because there's so much that you can do on the Discord, and it just kind of goes on forever. You have a lot of opportunities. Check out everything down in the description below. Let's talk a little bit about the best quarterbacks, and this is how I have them ranked now. And this is going to change every few days. After I go through this, for those of you in the chat, and if you have any comments about my list, fire away. But my list is going to differ from time to time based on intel that I get and who continues to get in the portal. As I'm doing this podcast live on a Friday afternoon, somebody might have gotten the portal in the last 10 minutes. That's how crazy this is. And it's one of the reasons I do live shows, because it changes constantly. Number one for me is still Sam Levitt. I'm going to assume that he's going to be healthy next year. That's my only real concern. If he is, there's really no reason for me not to think that he's not at the top of the board. And I've got him like on the same plane with Brendan Sorsby. Those two, if I had to pick one, I might go Sorsby because of the injury with Levitt, but it depends. I think Sorsby's probably got the higher floor. Levitt, because of the injury, if he's healthy, I think he could be more explosive in one season. But they're both very similar. They're general game managers that have turned into big-time players, guys that nobody knew, then they exploded. Like last year for Levitt, he was a guy that was a transfer from Michigan State. Nobody expected anything, and he was good. This year was really good until he got hurt. And Hoover, like he's the guy I'm going to talk about here in a second. This kind of goes along with him as well with Sorsby. Sorsby exploded this year. Over 600 rushing yards. He got bigger. He got stronger. He made a lot of different plays that I didn't think that he would necessarily make because, no offense to Cincinnati, but they're not great. And that kind of goes to Hoover, who I have third, kind of behind him. Again, Sorsby and Levitt I have like on top together. Depends on who you want to go with, what style. Hoover could be that guy again, like I was talking about in the first segment, but I got him third because I think he turns the ball over too much. Sorsby and Levitt a little bit less, so I'll go them ahead. Dylan Raiola. If he was a little more mobile, I might have him number one, but he's not a mobile quarterback, and he's a guy that I don't think is quite ready to be dominant, but I didn't think that about Sorsby. If you'd have told me 6 months ago that I was going to rank Sorsby at the top with Levitt in the transfer portal quarterback rankings, I'd have told you were off your rocker, but that's why they play the games. Raiola was really accurate this year. He did improve, but he still needs to, in my opinion, get in even better shape, be able to run a little bit more, and let's see what he can do with more talent. Nebraska has talent, but not college football playoff talent, and they really don't have the depth. If he goes to the right scheme, the right system, that could be really interesting. The next one will probably surprise the most people, and that's Kenny Minchey. He hasn't even played yet. I've been around him. I know what he's like, and I know a lot of people that have followed him in a lot of different ways. I've got nothing but very good feedback. He's great on the chalkboard. He has a live arm. He's a tremendous athlete, and he hasn't been beat up. Yeah, I know he's 3 years into college and hasn't played, but I just think that it's my gut feel here that I would have him next after Raiola. We'll see. DJ Lagway is next for me, and it's very simple. He's not healthy. He's not even close to healthy based on what I saw from him this season. If he takes the next year off, I think it would be great, but everybody wants a return on investment right away. Where's he going to go? LSU would be intriguing. I could see him playing, like if he played, ironically, I don't think this is where it'll go, but if he played in Tennessee's offense where they launch it down the field a lot, that'd be really interesting. Obviously, Florida players don't normally go to Tennessee, but you never know. What about a school like Clemson? That would be intriguing. He runs a little bit. Clemson does run the quarterback, but they don't run it a ton. That would be intriguing. Maybe that's the first time Dabo takes a QB. There are several other schools that could come into the mix as well. Indiana, they've used pocket quarterbacks. That's a possibility. It could be a lot of places. Wherever it is, Lagway is a very talented guy. And hopefully for him, he's able to play next year and not have to worry about the injuries, and he gets fully healthy. Aiden Childs, another guy built a lot like DJ Lagway, 6'3", 225, big arm, got benched at Michigan State. I got him next. Colton Joseph. This is the one that's maybe the hardest to grade. He's the young man that plays at Old Dominion. He had 179 rushing yards just against Indiana, but he only had a 59% completion rate. Maybe not quite as accurate as you'd like, but his offensive line, his receivers, etc., they were a solid team, but they were still not P4. So Old Dominion's just now in Division I. Are they really a program that can win at a high level? Probably not. I don't think he's got enough talent around him to really grade his passing ability. But what if he did go play for Buster Faulkner down at UF? Or if he plays for Gus Malzahn at Florida State? Someplace that knows how to use a quarterback that's mobile? What about Clemson? That's another one. Like Dabo scheme, I could see that for Colton Joseph. Absolutely. Wherever he goes, and for the record, he's a West Coast guy that went all the way to Virginia to play college ball. If he returns back west, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Caden Hauser. This is a guy that I need to research more. I need to watch film. Plays at East Carolina. He can run. He's not a guy that's going to gouge you with 30-yard runs. He'll go get you 6 or 8, but he's a passer. He's an experienced player. Somebody that didn't make it originally. I believe he's from Michigan State, which is an ironic thing because of the situation with Aiden Childs, but really talented. And finally, Bo Prabula. Started his career at Penn State, went to Missouri. Things didn't end the way they would hope. Now he's in the portal. I have no idea where to go with that one because they really didn't let him throw the ball in the middle of the field. So that begs the question. Was it the quarterback or was it the coaches? I'm going to go with the coaches knowing what they're doing. That gives me some pause. Middle of the field's dangerous. They just really didn't attack it at all. Missouri didn't this year. Not at all. So he's a guy that I think has a chance to be good, and he's a tremendous athlete, really good. But I don't trust him throwing the ball in the middle of the field, and that's a problem. The other two guys are also difficult. Aaron Philo, Georgia Tech. That's a guy that I really think will end up at Florida. We'll see. But he didn't get to play much. Kind of like Kenny Minchie. That's one of those situations you got to trust it or you don't. Marcus Stokes, a kid that was at West Florida. He's in the portal. I saw him at Elite 11. Same year I saw Minchie. He's very, very talented. Has a cannon for an arm. Stokes is one of those guys that maybe he tears it up, and he had like 40 touchdowns or something like that at West Florida this year. If he ends up at the right school, maybe he can do that. He can run around a little bit, but he's not quite Kenny Minchie, I don't think. I don't think he's going to be anything near Colton Joseph in terms of an athlete, but he can be mobile. He can run some RPO. He can do some quarterback bootleg. That could be a guy that could fit into a lot of places. With that arm strength, I wouldn't, just throwing it out there, I wouldn't throw out the opportunity for him to end up at Tennessee. And here's the irony. Like I was talking about with Lagway, obviously played for UF. Guess where Marcus originally committed? Gators. So he ended up at West Florida. I think that is going to be one where a lot of schools are going to have interest because the arm talent is absolutely through the roof. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about Oklahoma and Alabama. But first thing I'm going to do when we come back from the break, I'm going to jump into the chat, see what we got going on. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. For Rocket Money, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but one of the best things about it is you'll get notifications if you need to get rid of something or if there's something that's off right to your phone. So you'll know, hey, I need to check this out. Let's find out what's going on so you can save cash. And you can find good opportunities on the app. Every time you go into it, every month, you're going to find a way to save money. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the chat. Then I will get into Alabama versus Oklahoma. Talk some injuries. I have some awkward stuff to talk about there. I wish more guys would be healthy come playoff time, but that game's got some problems. So we'll get into that in a second. Salty, what do you think is the proper mix of high school recruits and portal transfers on a team? Generally, of course, it all depends on your needs, availabilities, but 3-1, etc. Here's what I found out. This is a great question. I've talked about this many times, and thank you for the question, Salty. Last year, the 4 teams that made it to the Final Four, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, combined, those 4 schools for the 24 year, just by itself, not in totality over the last 3-4 years prior to that, but for that year, they had 35 transfers, 8 to 12 guys. And that's kind of where it's at. Like Clemson takes too few. I think they had 4 this year. Florida only had 5. They really dipped into the high school ranks, and things can still go sideways. The sweet spot seems to be between about 8 and 12. If you're over 15 in a year, that tells me 2 things. Number one, either you're in an opportunity where you had to hit on the portal, somebody turned pro early, something like that. Look at LSU. They needed an offensive tackle at minimum in the portal. There just weren't many. They lost not one, but both their guys early this year, and it killed them. They could not protect. They had a freshman and a redshirt freshman. It was rough. So you can't lose guys early, but then you got to go to the portal. It is what it is. That's unfortunate. Or you just struggled at recruiting at key positions. If you're over 15, which about 90% of the schools are, that means, this is a tough word to say, your culture is probably not where it needs to be, because to really win, you've got to convince guys that aren't starting to stay. They've really got to want to be there. The academics, the social life, the degree value, the classmates that they have, in addition to playing football. And that's how you keep it at 15 or under that you're going to lose, and 15 or under that you're also only going to add. Recruiting high school is the key. I think it's closer to about 6-1 than it is 3-1. I don't know how to put that into perspective, but I'm talking about for an entire roster for the perfect situation, but that's going to be rare. At the end of the day, Salty's number is probably right, 3-1 in terms of your totality of your roster. 3 out of the 4 guys you have on your roster are high school guys at Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Oregon. I think those are the 4 best programs because they do that. When you see them go to the portal, they're not guessing. They're going after elite guys, and maybe 1 or 2 they think can develop long-term that they probably recruited out of high school that they didn't get. And at least they already had a relationship with that young man prior to him enrolling at their school as a transfer. So again, if you're over 12 in a cycle, that's okay. But if you get over 15, it's probably not a good sign. I don't think anybody other than Indiana could win it that's really a team that's over that 15 mark. Everybody, you look at the teams at the very top in the rankings. I use the weird exception. Everybody else is pretty much, we built through the high school ranks. Yes, even Tech. They've got a lot of high school starters, and they picked in some high-end guys from the portal. For the most part, you've got to build through high school. And then if you hit super high-end on the portal like Tech did, they got 3 defensive linemen. They're really good. They get a home run more than anybody there. You can make a playoff run. That's how you do it. But it's your baseline from the high school ranks. Let's see. Robert Sorensen. What quarterback should the Badgers go after? Always love when you are on Locked On Badgers. Thank you very much. I was actually just texting with Ryan earlier today. Ryan Herrings does a great job with Locked On Badgers. Which guy should they go after? That's a great question. I know that Kenny mentioned somebody they've talked about. I think Bo Pribula, Caton Hauser, Colton Joseph are all 3 guys. Pribula was at Missouri, Caton Hauser at East Carolina, Joseph at Old Dominion. Aiden Childs would be interesting too. The arm talent is certainly there. We'll see if they want to go the DJ Lagway route. That's possible, but that's going to be big NIL, and all the other guys are big NIL. So instead of just completely answering it, I'll ask it in this perspective. I know answering a question with a question is kind of frowned on, but how much money do they have to spend on just the quarterback? Because if it's not $2.5 million, they're probably not going anywhere. They should just invest in O-line, D-line, and everything else. Go with Carter Smith, and let's roll. That's what I think. You can take a portal quarterback that's not an elite guy that's going to compete with him or be the backup. Good there. But if you're really going to go after a portal quarterback, minimum money is about $2.5 million. Is the administration / state of Wisconsin really looking to allocate those kind of funds? I'm not so sure they are. I need to see it from the Badgers. And if anybody else wants to ask me about a quarterback they should get, I can give you my my expertise for whatever that's worth. It is a crapshoot, but I can tell you why a guy will or will not fit your offense, if nothing else. Katie, what's going on, Katie? Buster Faulkner is an interesting get for Florida. I'm interested to see what type of running backs he'll recruit. His running backs at Tech were quick, give them a crease, and it was see ya. Yeah, he had some athletic guys. If they keep Jaden Ball, I'm sure he'd happily do that. Ball's not a burner, but he's 215, 220 pounds. Like he's a horse. Maybe you mix in a couple quick guys. That would be interesting. That's a great point. Everybody wants to concentrate on quarterback, myself included. But Katie brings up a good point. If he gets the right running backs to go with the quarterback, he doesn't need to get Sam Levitt. He doesn't need to get Sorsby or whatever. They could be really good next year at Florida if they get linemen. I don't know how they're going to do this. I had Brandon Olson on a crossover that I put up this morning. I'm not real warm and fuzzy about Florida's O-line situation. They lost arguably their two best linemen. Another guy, I believe, is out of eligibility, and the other guys are just okay as starters. That's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be, but they do have, I like Florida's coaching staff. I think they've done a really good job. Let's see. Raymond, what's going on, brother? Hope all is well. Katie, Lagway is my sleeper, the right school, and he can be a steal. I agree. DJ Lagway is a steal, but is he really going to be the guy that takes you to that next level if he's not 100% healthy? It is such a difficult thing to project, and I don't remotely think for 1 second that you can predict injuries, even if you're a doctor, because you don't know what the kid's going to do. You don't know if he's going to follow the regimen to do the things he needs to do in the offseason to stay healthy. Training for football and mitigating risk, it's a pretty difficult task. Robert Sorensen, Ryan really wants Colton Joseph for Wisconsin. So do lots of schools like Florida State. I'm sure Florida is one of them, for what I've heard. I'm going to say it again. Bottom end money for Wisconsin to be competitive in the portal for a top quarterback will be about $2.5 million. Joseph, I don't know exactly what it'll be. That's a little harder to project. But a lot of the teams that Wisconsin's going to be going against, because those staffs, not just at Wisconsin, but other places, are on that fringe of either getting fired or they need to get a quick start at a new place, they're going to overspend. Let's see what Wisconsin's able to do there. Berg Dogger, can Wisconsin win any of the top 5 quarterbacks? Sure, if they want to spend $3 million or more. Sure, they absolutely can. But they also got to spend on some other things. Do I think they will do that? Probably not. That's just my opinion. All right, now to kind of finish up, these are just a few of the questions and comments that I have about the Alabama game, and I'll get back into the chat. I'll get some more here in a minute. Alabama versus Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma, first game of the playoff. This is fun. This is what college football should be all about. I enjoy this, and I hope you do too. My first 2 questions are basically the same. You're just changing the person. How healthy is Ty Simpson? How healthy is John Mateer? Let me give you an example. I didn't even pull up the stat. I've looked it up so many times. I knew this. The game against LSU, I'll just use Mateer as an example. He's a runner. He had rushed 19 times, I believe it was, against Michigan early in the year. You know how many times he ran against LSU? 8. 8. A team that plays a lot of man defense, and you're a mobile quarterback and you're not running much. When you're going against man teams, their back is to the line of scrimmage on the outside. He's not healthy. I don't care what injury report they're not utilizing there. In other words, boldface, Oklahoma is lying about their injury situation with Mateer. 100%. There's no way it's just a hand injury. Your hand doesn't impact how you run. 0 chance. How healthy is he? We're not going to know, but that's one of the reasons I don't really like to bet. You're not going to ever get an accurate injury report for a playoff game, especially when it's obvious that a guy like that's been banged up. And then on the other side, Ty Simpson went from a guy that was, in my opinion, the most accurate quarterback in all of college football, and then he fell off a cliff. Did you see anything about this so-called back injury that he has on Alabama's report? Did you see anything about that? I don't remember it. If it's true that it was put on there, please let me know in the chat. I think Alabama is bold-faced lying about their injuries too. To that end, we have no idea what we're going to get from either of the starting quarterbacks. That's a problem. This game is all but a pick 'em, depending on which service you want to go at. I think FanDuel has it at like 1 point, pick 'em, something like that, and most of the books do as well. With that in mind, you got to be thinking about something here that's really, really important. Offensive line. Alabama's LT Overton is not going to play. That's one of the stud defensive linemen for the Tide. That's unfortunate. And really good news for Oklahoma because they got 2 true freshmen at the tackle spots. And Makula, the big center, I don't know if he's going to play. I just sent out a message. I haven't even checked my phone to hear what I've got here. Let's see if I can find something. Ooh, that doesn't look good. Looks like he's probably not going to play from what my source says. Not having your center and having 2 true freshmen, they're pretty lucky if Alabama doesn't have Overton, and it sounds like he's out for the game. That's been announced by Alabama, but that's still a pretty salty defense in the front. This could be an absolute rock fight, and if it ended up 16-14, would it surprise me? No. Both quarterbacks banged up. Neither team's offensive line has been consistent at running the ball for whatever reason, and both teams just have a lot of speed on defense. I think both those secondaries are great. I think they're well coached. So with all of that, here are the questions that I have. How many carries does Mateer get? Going back to that LSU game, 8 carries. 8. Are they going to risk him running, or can he really run? Bama's got guys that can track you, man. Their DBs are physical. I really like that secondary. Number 2, how much does, I don't want to say get help, but how much balance does Bama have in the run game? The traditional run game. They've got sledgehammers back there. Jam Miller's supposed to be ready to go too. And Cam Dewberry is supposed to be ready to roll as well. The offense guard, he's a big dude. He's the transfer from A&M. Really like him. If they can't run for 80 to 100 yards minimum, I don't know if they're going to win. It's a tough place to play. Norman, Oklahoma, that's one of my favorite stadiums in college football. Really love that place. To that end, somebody's got to win. So let's keep going down the list, see if we can find something here. Does Bama run the football with any form of success early on so you can run play action? And hint, this is a question I have coming up. Get the ball to Ryan Williams, not just, Bernard. Bernard's awesome. Jeremy Bernard's great football player. But if you've got balance and Cuevas, the tight end, it sounds like he's going to play. You've got a chance. Third, and I just put 2 words down in a question mark. Ryan Williams. He's been an enigma. If he is locked in early, and hopefully for Bama's sake, Ty Simpson doesn't throw a pick 6, which really cost them the game the first time they played in Tuscaloosa. Does Ryan Williams end up being the X factor? I think he could be. For Oklahoma, any new offensive wrinkles? I've already brought up the big need, in my opinion. I think Mateer needs at least 12 carries. At least 12 carries. He doesn't have to run like 19 he did against Michigan. They can do better than that. But Sestania, and they've got a good group of running backs. Barnes might be back. I'd have to lean on some of my buddies on that one. But they've got a good group of running backs. They got size. They've got quickness. They've got youth. They should be good there. If they can just get 1 or 2 plays, I don't care if it's a trick play. I don't care if it's a new formation that gets basically the same route, gets Sestania open or somebody else. Maybe it's tight end, a throwback screen, whatever. They've got a better chance. But they're not going to be destroyed from a yardage standpoint like they were in the game against Alabama the first time. And win the turnover battle, I believe it was 3-0. You're going to need some explosive plays if you're Oklahoma, and they know that. What are they going to do to come up with it? Because if they don't, they're going to get an L in their own stadium. Finally, with Makula out, does Alabama attack differently up front? When you lose your center, oftentimes, I forget the person, I apologize, but as far as the betting lines go, about 70% of the time when a center is out, that team doesn't cover. Well, this is pretty much a pick 'em game, so that means you don't win. I think Alabama's going to try to scheme it up. They've got 2 veteran linebackers. They still have a bevy of good players. James Smith in the middle, nasty. They've got some really talented players up front. You're going to see a little bit extra for that game. They've had some time to prepare. You're going to see them come after them. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think so. You're going to throw the kitchen sink at John Mateer because I don't think he reads it that well either. He reminds me a little bit of Marcel Reed in that regard. Let's see here. We got Midwest Boxing 4415. Why would anyone decent quarterback go play for Wisconsin and that coaching staff? Money, location, chance to start, Big Ten. It's a good school. Those are the reasons I have, but it's going to be hard for Wisconsin. I think they would be better, again, to be clear. It would be smarter for them to invest in O-line, D-line, maybe get a corner or 4. They need some more. And they've got to get a big play receiver. It's kind of like chicken and the egg for Wisconsin. That's my opinion, but we'll see how that goes. They got to get a lot better on offense overall, though. Katie, there are 2 teams that will ride a lot of ridicule if they lose, Bama and Miami, because of questions about them being in the playoff to begin with. That is a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. I think both of them are deserving in terms of their roster because they have the talent to play at the college football playoff level, but they were both inconsistent this year. And I have reasons for both of them not being in it, but that's not what this podcast is for. I will absolutely dive into that conversation, as well as Oklahoma, as well as BYU, Notre Dame, and look at it after the playoff is over, maybe even next week, talk about it a little bit. It's a really interesting topic to get into. Thank you to everybody that checked out the Portal Podcast again today. Really love doing these. It's a lot of fun. Please come back and probably, you know what, I might do one tomorrow morning. Might do one around 10:30, 11 o'clock to kind of just talk about the games. I've got a podcast on Miami versus A&M that's going to be going up later today. But I might talk about some of the overall arching themes, the impact of recruiting and the transfer portal. I'll probably do that tomorrow morning. Do it for about a half hour or something like that before the games, maybe 10 a.m. Let's go 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning for those of you that are interested, because the first game is going to be at noon Eastern. That's A&M in Miami. Then you got 2 games that'll probably be blowouts. Honestly, I can't remember the order, but I think the first game is Ole Miss after that, and then they're playing Tulane, and then, of course, James Madison's going out to get crushed by Oregon later on in the evening. They're going up against the NFL games. That's why they're putting those 2 games later, and A&M Miami earlier. But once again, thank you very much for the Portal Podcast interest. We will see you again soon.